Welcome back to Joellen's Kitchen, and today we're going to continue the Pennsylvania Dutch theme since I'm in Pennsylvania Dutch country, and today we're going to make a shoofly pie. Now I have to tell you, it's not real hot out, so the flies aren't really flying around yet, so we're not going to have to shoo any flies away from this pie, but there's some molasses in it and sugar, and that would attract the flies on a hot summer day. So what we're going to do is I like to grease my pie plates because it makes the dough a little bit flakier and tastier. And it's a matter of my Crisco and just rubbing it around on the bottom. And then I kind of cheat and use the Pillsbury pie crust because, well, during the pandemic, this doesn't apply, I must admit, but normally in my duties as a county commissioner, I'm on the run quite a bit, so I look for shortcuts to make my job easier. But these come already rolled out and cut in circles, and they're really easy to use. You just unroll it, throw it into one of your pie plates, and the recipe today that we're going to use will make 2 pies. So if you're not quite sure if you're going to like this, you can always just cut it in half and make 1 pie to try it. So first of all, we get that in there, of course, and then I'm going to flute the edges. It's a matter of pushing your 2 index fingers together and squeezing the dough up between them. That's how I do it. I'm sure there's many fancier ways by professional cooks, but remember, I'm a South Central Pennsylvania Dutch girl, and this is how I learned to do it, so bear with me. If you have a fancier way to do it, that's fine. Now what we need to do is take a fork and prick the pie crust so that it doesn't bubble up in the center. That's it. To this recipe, you need 2 bowls, and in your 2 bowls, you're going to do 2 things. The one is going to be basically a dry mix to start, and the other one is going to be a wet mix, because when we make a shoofly pie, there are 2 kinds. One is like a shoofly cake, but in a pie dough. That's not the kind my family likes. They like the wet bottom shoofly, pie, so there's a layer of almost liquid molasses on the bottom. Now there's 2 kinds of molasses. There's the regular, which has a real strong bite, kind of bitter, so I liken it, if you like hard whiskey, maybe you'll like that really strong molasses taste. But what I like to get is the Brer Mild, and that just has a nice softer taste to it. And for somebody trying it the first time, I think I'd recommend that. Some people will use king syrup, and there's other things you can substitute, but the real shoofly pie uses a molasses. So what we're going to do is start with the dry bowl, and I have my large mixing bowl here, and I have pre-measured 3 cups of flour, so I'm just going to pour that in. That's 3 cups again. And the next thing we're going to add is 1 cup of sugar. So I have my sugar pre-measured, adding that to it. And then what we need is a 1/2 cup of Crisco. Now they have different kinds of Crisco. A butter Crisco is nice, but I don't have that today, so I'm going to use regular Crisco. And they nowadays come in almost like a butter wrapper. When I was growing up, all they had was the cans and you had to measure it out, but I really like these. And then you're going to put that in. Now, some people have those fancy dough that breaks everything up. I just use my hands, and what you do is squeeze the Crisco and the flour and sugar together, and you're going to look for a crumb consistency. You keep going until you have it nice and mixed together. When I have this all together, what I'm going to do is remove 1 cup of this mixture and keep that for the topping, because the topping will have like a dry crumble top. and the center will be more moist like a cake. But it's about mixed now, and that's all it took. I just have flour on my fingers, but if you have one of those fancy pastry colors, you go to it. Okay, I'm going to get my cup, and we're going to make 1 cup out. Okay, that's about a cup of the crumb mixture right there. I have this old measuring cup I love. So what I'm going to do is just pour this into a bowl so we can add it when it's time. And I'm going to reuse my measuring cup. All right, now what we need to do is add our teaspoon of baking soda. Just put it in there and kind of level it off. 1 teaspoon of baking soda. Now a cup of molasses, which again I pre-poured. So in here's my cup of molasses. And it's really dark even though it's mild. It's called golden, I think, golden molasses. And it takes a little bit for that all to run out of there. You might even want to get a spatula and scrape it out. I happen to have a knife laying here. I think I'll try and use that to help it along in the process. And then the next thing I want to add is a cup of hot water. So I'm just going to use the same cup because quite frankly, we're going to keep adding and mixing molasses and water. So I'm going to lay my knife down and get a cup of water. Just pop my water into the microwave for 1 minute. That'll make it good and hot. Sometimes people make cups of coffee or tea by doing that method instead of, you know, getting a whole pot full on the stove. And it goes pretty fast. Now, I have a whisk ready because I don't even have a mixer. I just use it all by hand. Now my water looks a little dark because the molasses is in there, but we wanted that into the cake mixture anyhow. So we're going to add this. There we go. Again, we have flour, sugar, Crisco, baking soda, molasses, and hot water in this conglomeration here. And then we're just going to take our whisk, or if you use a mixer, that's fine. And you want to make sure it's thoroughly blended. It doesn't take too long. And it's going to get a brown color, a dark brown. I'm going to show you. See that brown mixture in there? That's what it looks like. All right, now we're going to set that aside a minute. And we're going to work on the liquid. This is actually the cake batter for the pie. All right, now the next bowl we're going to put 1/2 cup of sugar, which I have pre-measured, and we have to add 1 egg. Just like that. Okay, and then the next thing we add is a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. So get my trusty little teaspoon out here. 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And then now we need 1 1/4 cups of molasses. So I guess I have to pour it into my cup. We're going to get a cup out. I can actually fit 1 1/4 cups in this measuring cup, believe it or not. I think they didn't want you to spill, but I'm going to push the envelope here and take it up to the top. Getting there, it's just a little slower like molasses in January. Yeah, I had to get that pun in there somewhere, didn't I? Alrighty, there we go. 1 1/4 cups of molasses. And we're going to add that in with our sugar and egg and our 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. And what we also have to do then, instead of hot water, this time we're going to add cold water. So again, I'm just going to coax my molasses along here and get it out of the cup the best I can. There we go. And then I'm going to go get my cup of cold water. Here's my cup of cold water. Just going to add that in there. And this time, Everything has flour in, you know. We're just going to add 1 tablespoon of flour. I have my flour bag handy, so we'll get a tablespoon. And we just kind of level it off a little bit and put 1 tablespoon of flour in there. Now again, we have to mix this all together. And I'm just going to use the same, basically the same ingredients, just different amounts of liquid and flour in there. And this time we're going to mix it gently because it'll really make a mess if it comes up over. This even looks darker brown, almost black, like coffee it looks. I'll show you in a minute. But this is what it looks like when it's all mixed together. Really dark, almost brownish black. Now that we have the 2 mixtures, what we're going to do is pour half of the mixture into the bottom of 1 pie plate. And this, I have the liquid mixture. Okay, we're going to pour half the liquid mixture in this one, so it covers the bottom, and half the liquid mixture into this one, so it covers the bottom. Make them as even as you can. Now we're going to put the cake batter type mixture in across the top, like that. And I do use deep bottom pie pans, that way I don't have as much spillage into the oven. Who likes to clean the oven? Not me. Okay, the next thing we do is, remember we took out that cup of mixture, it was crumbs I called it, with flour and Crisco and sugar in it. Well, now we're going to take this and sprinkle it around the top. What happens is that wet will absorb some of it, and some of it will stay kind of dry on the top, and it just gives it a nice look, and it really tastes good. Okay, what we're going to do is put the pies in the oven at 350 degrees for 45 minutes. Now, how we tell if they're done is you take a dry, clean knife, not this one that has molasses on it, and you stick it in the center and you pull it out. If it comes out clean, it's done. If it comes out all gooey and full of molasses, except for maybe the tip on the bottom, then it's not ready to come out yet. But you want to not burn it, so it should look kind of brown, light brown when you pull it out, and just smell delicious. Let's give it a shot. Okay, time to fire up the gas stove. I got to turn it on at the side and turn on the oven and get my fire going and step back a little bit so I don't singe my, well, there we go. Woo! I don't want to singe my eyebrows off. So we got that going. With a gas oven, there's not a lot of wait time to heat it up, so it's almost instantaneous. Again, here's the pie ready to go in the oven. Stick one in the back there. My pie plates are too big to put them both on the same rack. So we're going to let them bake 45 minutes, and I'll be back. Just in case you never did this, here's what it looks like when you're draining 2 bottles of molasses together. That way you don't waste a drop of it. You just let it set until the top bottle gets clear and it's all drained into the bottom bottle. Okay, I guess it's time to get the pies out. Smells good, it looks good. All right. And there's one more in there yet. And all this baking is going on at my house because we're in the middle of the pandemic and I'm kind of quarantined at home. So it's a matter, see, and my knife comes out pretty clean, so it's good and done. but we have to eat, and so it's kind of fun going back to some old-fashioned recipes and seeing what we can come up with the Pennsylvania Dutch cooking, like Grandma used to make, so to speak. Okay, I cut that pie into 6 pieces. You can cut it into 8, it's up to you. And we're going to get a piece out here. See how we do on this. All right. It's the gooey wet bottom there. Whoops. And here's our pie. It's a little bit hot to eat yet. It's really steaming, but we'll give it a shot. Give it a taste. Real good.